In the game of baseball, there is a special place. A place found deep inside anyone who's ever put bat to ball. A place built by tradition and lit by the warm glow of memory. A place where the boys of summer dream about fall. It doesn't matter what jersey they wear. This is where they play their best. A cherished and fertile proving ground where legends are cultivated. A field of dreamers. They come to fulfill a promise to themselves, to write an epic story on diamond-shaped pages. Awards are for the mantle, numbers for the history books. This is about the game. Every generation has their chance to rewrite the mythology, to add the present to our pastime, to succumb to the eternal rhythms of 6-4-3. It's as pure as the smile on a face, and as powerful as history in the making. And no matter where the game has taken them, they still long to come back. They have built it, and now we have come. The magic of the postseason unfolds next. It isn't heaven, but it's pretty darn close.
A sold-out Comerica Park crowd takes in images of past Tigers' triumph in the fall, hoping that this year they can add to the reel. Welcome to this Division Series telecast on MLB Network, presented by Geico. This afternoon in Detroit, Game 3 of the American League Division Series between the AL Western Division champion Oakland A's and the three-time champs from the Central, the Detroit Tigers. And welcome inside the broadcast booth with Jim Cott. Matt Vasgersian. Pitching has been the order of the day in this series. Just 6 runs have been scored between the two teams over 2 games. That's one of the lowest run-scoring 2-game outputs in Division Series history of late. Starting pitching has been terrific. We're expecting nothing different today, Jim, although the starters out there this afternoon might go about their jobs a little differently than those we've seen so far in the series.
Yeah, Matty, we've seen almost half of the hitters from the first 2 games strike out. Today, while the credentials of these 2 Game 3 starters are pretty impressive. For the Tigers, Anibal Sanchez led the league in ERA, keeps it in the ballpark here, and he registered over 200 strikeouts. And for the A's, Jared Parker, 12-8 record, great changeup, and at one point during the year, 19 consecutive starts without a loss.
Is today the day the offenses get going in this series? If that's to happen, then the 2 big drivers in each lineup are going to have to get it started. For Oakland, Yoenis Cespedes has been really the only offensive bright spot, doing what he's in charge of. But for Detroit, because of the bad hip, the bad back, Miguel Cabrera has been slowed down, and a lot of folks in Detroit are waiting for him to get it going again.
Well, we know Cespedes loves the big stage, so you would expect him to do something exciting today. And I don't care what kind of problems Miguel Cabrera has had physically, he will find a way to do some damage.
A pivotal Game 3 of the series on tap, a bit of recent DS history. When a series gets to 1-1, the team that wins Game 3 has gone on to win 9 of the last 10 division series. A big one on tap this afternoon. After a quick timeout, we're back with the starting lineups and the opening pitch. A's and Tigers Game 3 from Detroit. Coming up next. Welcome back to Detroit. Anibal Sanchez ready to start things in Game 3 of this American League Division Series on a sunny, cool, windy day in Detroit. Conditions just might play a role this afternoon. The early start today after both teams had a travel day yesterday after the goings-on in Oakland. Here's how Bob Melvin aligns the A's. Their Geico starting lineup starts with Coco Crisp at the top of the card. Josh Donaldson is one of only 2 true right-handed hitters to start this afternoon. Lowry, Moss, and Cespedes is 3 through 5. And then it's all lefties between Smith, Reddick, Game 2 hero Stephen Vogt, and the second baseman Eric Sogard. And on the mound is Anibal Sanchez, the 8-year veteran, making another postseason start against the Oakland A's. He got the ball in Game 3 of last year's division series and was a 2-0 loser that afternoon. Part of Oakland's coming back to take that series all the way to a 5th and decisive game.
Quite a pitching line for a number 3 game starter, Matty. I know the Red Sox have Clay Buchholz going. He's pretty impressive, but to have guys like this starting Game 3 shows you the kind of pitching staff the Tigers have.
Well, the Oakland A's are very aware of what Detroit brings from a pitching standpoint after the past couple of nights, as though they didn't know that beforehand. And we're underway in Game 3. First pitch to Coco Crisp misses off the plate. 53 degrees at game time this afternoon. And as we mentioned, a lot of glare and a lot of wind at Comerica Park. Crisp, Donaldson, and Lowry started for Oakland this afternoon. Coco Crisp with a drive out to right field. Hunter lays out, but it's past him. Coco can run. He's into second base easily with a leadoff double.
A great effort by Torrey Hunter, but just out of his reach. And as Bob Melvin told us before the game, Coco Crisp is the engine of the Oakland A's. They have to get him doing what he just did to try to score some runs.
His first base hit of this postseason, and that sets up the 2-hole hitter this afternoon, Josh Donaldson. It's really the only major change for Bob Melvin today, flip-flopping Donaldson and Lowry in the 2 and 3 chairs. And the A's have an opportunity to get on the board very early this afternoon. Runner in scoring position to start the day. A swing and a miss.
See Donaldson trying to go the other way, advance the runner. Josh Donaldson to the average. As you see the flag here at Comerica Park. Wind could be a factor today, but Josh Donaldson with MVP type credentials. A lot of fans haven't not heard about this young player who actually started out this year as a catcher.
Just 1 for 8 with 4 strikeouts in the series so far. He lays off, and it's a ball and a strike. Donaldson finished the regular season at .301, 24 home runs, 93 driven in, as Jed Lowry waits on deck. Sanchez out of the stretch, and Donaldson puts it in play for Miguel Cabrera. That keeps Crisp at second, and there's one gone.
Well, today's breakdown brought to you by Expedia. We're going to get a look at Anibal Sanchez. Mentioned he is probably as good a Game 3 starter as any team could offer. He keeps the ball in the ballpark. He's only given up 9 home runs in over 180 innings this year, and he uses all 4 pitches. Unlike the 4 starters in the first 2 games who are primarily power guys, he can strike hitters out, but he'll do it with a variety of pitches.
There's Jed Lowry now with the runner in scoring position and 1 away. Lowry, like Coco Crisp, looking for his first base hit in this postseason. 0-1 to the switch hitting shortstop. Brandon Moss waits on deck, and number in a series of left-handed at-bats for Anibal Sanchez this afternoon. And what little success opponents have had against Sanchez, it seems to be magnified just a bit against the left-handed bats, as Lowry sends a high fly ball to right. There's that tricky sun sky for Torrey Hunter. He makes the catch. Coco's going to try it. The strong throw is not in time, and Crisp advances on the fly ball.
Torrey Hunter gets a little excitement out of the crowd. You see him catch it on the run and get everything he can into that throw. But Chris Ben easily points out the at-bat by Josh Donaldson. As you see Chris looking up into the sun, tags up, and advances to third. But with Donaldson grounding out and not advancing him, that keeps that fly ball from being a sacrifice fly.
So a 2-out runner at third now for the first baseman, Brandon Moss. 1 for 7 with 6 strikeouts so far in the first 2 games of the series. He is, however, in good company. There have been a lot of strikeouts in the first 2 games of this one, Jim, and you made the note when we went on the air that about half the outs recorded in the first 2 games have been via the strikeout.
Now, we visited with Kevin Millar, Harold Reynolds on the pregame show, talking to them as a couple of hitters. Hitters don't like long layoffs, and both of these teams had 3 or 4 days off, and the hitters' timing seems to be a bit off. And you combine that with the great starting pitching, and it adds up to the impressive performances we've had the first 2 games.
To be exact, about 43% of the outs have come via the strikeout. You've got to go back a ways to find a higher percentage of outs in the first 2 games of a postseason series coming that way. Fans make some noise behind Sanchez, trying to strand that runner at third with 2 gone in the first. There is not a whole lot of pretty numerology behind Oakland's lineup the first 2 games of the series. It's 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position. That man, Yoenis Cespedes, has been just about a one-man show. Next 2-strike pitch misses in the dirt, and it's 2-2 now to Brandon Moss. Oakland's lineup batting just 177 in the 2 games to start the series. And that's what makes Sonny Gray's heroics in game 2, and the fact that Oakland could essentially steal a win on a night when Justin Verlander was so dominant. That makes Gray's performance that much more impressive. And we'll visit with him later on this afternoon. And a full count now as Avila smothers that ball in the dirt.
Well, one of the trademarks of this Oakland lineup, you're seeing it right here, not biting at any of those 2-strike pitches, and another good job by Avila. Get the glove down, the body down. Catchers don't try to catch that ball. They just try to block it, keep the runner at third. But Oakland, as they did with Verlander, will drive that pitch count out, and Bob Melvin hopefully gets the starter out of the game.
Full count, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Brandon Moss. Here is the payoff pitch. And Moss hangs around. Now, Brandon Moss put together a regular season line that included 30 home runs, 87 runs batted in. And if you had been paying attention to the Oakland A's last year, this would not have been a surprise. He was hardly a one-hit wonder. He established himself on the map in the middle of 2012. Here is the next 3-2 pitch to him. In 84 games last year, just over 250 at-bats, Moss hit 21 home runs, slugged almost 600. And that success carried over to 2013, though his postseason results still haven't been there. Here is the next 3-2 pitch. Ball 4.
Well, it's a big at bat right there. Big at bat by Moss after being down in the count, because you get the A's most productive player in the batter's box here in the first inning with a couple men on.
Yoenis Cespedes is 4 of 8 so far in 2 games to start the series. And with a chance to hit here, runners at the corners and 2 gone. crisp at third after doubling to start the ball game, and then Moss works a base on balls. Boy, after a long plate appearance to Brandon Moss, an 8-pitch at bat, Sanchez ready to go back to work. Cespedes aggressive as per usual, fouls off the first pitch. Well, that's the proof. Yoenis Cespedes has been something of a one-man band. It's a dynamic that Bob Melvin admits needs to change in order for Oakland to move past the Tigers for the first time in the last few postseason tries.
Playing him as straight away as you can, both infield and outfield.
And Cespedes behind 0-2. Now a count for Anibal Sanchez to go to that toolbox, and it's fast. As Jim mentioned, 4 pitches, including 2 different variations of a very good changeup. Something that Sanchez has thrown more often since becoming a Tiger last July.
That's usually the fastball sign.
The 0-2. And they struck him out with a high fastball. A staff that set a major league record for strikeouts during the regular season gets a big one to end the top of the first. Welcome back. Let's take a look at the Tigers Geico starting lineup. Between Torrey Hunter and Victor Martinez, you're talking about 21 combined all-star appearances. Jackson, Hunter, and Cabrera off the top. Fielder Martinez and Johnny Peralta starting in left field, batting in the 6th spot. Alex Avila, Omar Infante, and Jose Iglesias round things out for Jim Leyland's bunch, taking swings against the 24-year-old second-year right-hander, former first-round draft choice Jared Parker.
Excellent changeup. Not as much variety as Sanchez will throw at Oakland. Primarily fastballs and changeups.
Parker's afternoon is underway with strike one to Austin Jackson. Rarely do you start out in the bottom of the first, Jim, talking about how the leadoff hitter might be the key guy as folks are still settling into their seats, but that might be a true thing when it comes to Jackson versus Parker, as the Tigers leadoff hitter has had some real success against the young Oakland right-hander this year.
He's called on to set the table for the big guys behind him.
Takes a look at a strike, and it's a ball and 2 strikes now to Austin Jackson. Torrey Hunter, one of those big guys, a 4-time All-Star, batting next, just 1 for 7 so far to start this division series. And the 1-2 pitch home is fouled away. You know, you can say the same thing about the Tigers lineup that you can about the A's, and that is that fans here are just kind of sitting on their hands waiting for this big offensive juggernaut to explode. Only the Red Sox scored more runs than the Tigers this year. It's a team that led the league in batting average and on base, yet they have been quiet so far in the series.
Not surprising in postseason play, because you're seeing the best teams, the best pitchers, and actually these top 6 teams in the American League have the best pitching staffs in terms of holding down base runners, striking out hitters. But these first 2 games have taken it to an extreme, the way these starters have dominated.
Parker's next 2-strike pitch to Jackson is swung on and missed. There's one of those changeups you talked about, Jim, and there's one gone to start the home first.
Yeah, changeup for years was a pitch that pitchers used behind in the count to get a hitter out front. Recent years, a changeup is a weapon, a strikeout pitch. Let's look at the breakdown brought to you by Expedia. He's seeking revenge. He's 0-4 against the Tigers, including a loss last year postseason. We mentioned the outstanding changeup, and you've just seen it. And the object is to try to keep Jackson off base. He's done that.
Torrey Hunter picks on the first pitch, a convenient waist-high hop for Josh Donaldson, and there are 2 gone for Jared Parker to start his day. Yeah, you talked about the revenge factor for Jared Parker. A couple of postseason appearances last year against the Tigers. He went 6 1/3 in both, lost them both. In fact, has never beaten Detroit. And Miguel Cabrera will settle in here with 2 out and the bases empty. The most feared hitter on the planet.
They really shade him over to right center field. You see over here in right center field, so they anticipate, which he does so well, rightly so. Cabrera is one of those hitters that can wait and take a good pitch the opposite way. Like most power hitters, I mean, Manny Ramirez was the gold standard for years. Fastball's up and in, best pitch, but it's a tough pitch to get a called strikeout. And good hitters like Cabrera, they have the ability to fight that pitch off. And then when you think, well, I can get him with a breaking ball, that's when they align that pitch the opposite way, and that's why they play him the opposite way.
1-1 from Parker. Into the left field corner. Cabrera not running 100%, and he'll have to settle with a single here with 2 gone.
Now they tried to get that fastball in on him, but it wasn't in enough. All he needs is a little room to get those fast hands to the baseball, and rifles that down the left field line. And you'll not see a lot of speed of Miguel out of the box. Everybody's saying, well, you know, his hitting is effective because he doesn't have his legs under him. He'll find a way to get it done with his hands, as he did in that swing.
A 2-out base runner now for the 5-time All-Star Prince Fielder.
I think Tiger fans are waiting for sort of a coming out party for Prince Fielder here in postseason play. He was expected to be the protection for Miguel Cabrera, get a lot of opportunities to knock in runs, and he's getting one right here.
And Boss not even holding Cabrera aboard at the bag. fielder swings and pops it in the infield. Lowry at the cutout, and Jared Parker pitches a scoreless bottom of the first. Underway in Detroit to the second. No score. %, or more on car insurance, and sponsored in part by the Lincoln Motor Company and by Expedia. Find yours. Back with Jim Cott and Sam Ryan. Matt Vasgersian here at Comerica Park in Detroit. Some of the images of last year's 5-game triumph for the Detroit Tigers on their way to a World Series appearance. This division series all even at 1 game apiece in 2013 as Seth Smith leads things off in the Oakland second. Smith, Reddick, and Vogt, a trio of left-handed adversaries against Anibal Sanchez.
Smith has done pretty well against Sanchez in his career.
Seth Smith had a couple of base hits on Saturday in the win in Game 2. You saw the line against Sanchez. He has had success. In fact, Seth Smith has 3 career home runs against today's Tiger starter. That's the most Sanchez has allowed to any batter, including the postseason. First one came as a Rocky, and the last 2 as an Oakland A, including one in Game 3 of last year's division series. And Smith continues that success here with a leadoff base hit.
Check out the Tiger defense behind Anibal Sanchez. You've seen a few of them perform already around the outfield. They have Johnny Peralta, normally a shortstop. First time ever playing left field in Comerica Park. Austin Jackson in center, and the 9-time Gold Glover Torrey Hunter. Over in right, Cabrera, Iglesias, Infante, and Prince Fielder around the infield. Alex Avila does the catching.
Leadoff hitter aboard for the second straight inning now for Josh Reddick. Yeah, the Johnny Peralta story, is getting a start in the outfield in Game 3, series coming back home, is really one of the big ones in this entire series. Peralta had a pinch hitting appearance in Game 1 in Oakland, did not play Saturday night. Tiger fans certainly familiar and hopeful that Peralta can make a smooth transition, at least in the short term, as an outfielder.
Well, there was some question whether should he play because he served a 50-game suspension for PEDs. But Dave Dombrowski met with the team. He met with Johnny Hayes. He did the crime. He's done the time by the collective bargaining agreement. It's legal for him to be out there playing, as it was for Nelson Cruz. But he played left field in the instructional league. He played down in Miami. But with the wind today and the sun and the big left field, this would be a real challenge for him. I'm sure Bob Melvin said to his hitters, anything in the air to left, run hard. Keep going.
Yeah, I could see him and Chili Davis during batting practice before the game today. Hit everything to left, fellas. Don't worry about how it's pitched. And there's a strike for Reddick. Well, Johnny Peralta is a good enough athlete to at least have the confidence of his manager that he can catch fly balls. Tricky hops, as you mentioned, plays involving throwing to the right base, that remains to be seen. One thing's for sure, the Tigers want his bat out there today. As Reddick sends a fly ball to left. Here's Peralta being tested at the track, feeling for the wall. Looked okay to me.
No problem. I tell you what, with that flag blowing out, that ball is carrying rather well. It's a big left field. We got a little ovation out there from the Tiger faithful just for catching a fly ball. See him look over at Austin Jackson. He'll get his direction from Jackson as to where to move and how deep to play.
So with one out and one on, here is the game two hero, one of them at least, the catcher Stephen Vogt. Just 1 for 7 in the series, but that one was a big one. A game-winning bottom of the 9th inning, bases loaded single on Saturday at a noisy, rowdy O.co Coliseum.
Yeah, this is a great story. Probably take us 3 at-bats to fill you in on his background. There's the hit that Matty was talking about. He looked at a couple sinkers from Porcello, knew he was a low ball pitcher, and he got a low pitch, took it the other way, game winner.
A ball and a strike to Vogt with 1 out and 1 on here in the top of the second.
Chased a bad pitch there. He was about ready to look for a job on the designated for assignment list, and the A's took a blow. There's an off-speed pitch that Vogt chases well out of the strike zone. John Jaso sidelined with a concussion. Eric Norris, their backup catcher, broken toe. And Vogt gets an opportunity to play.
Just a couple of years removed from playing in Venezuela. Wasn't sure if the big leagues were going to work. And right to the prime time in 2013. A strikeout victim here in his first plate appearance. The second of the afternoon for Anibal Sanchez.
Yeah, he got schooled by Anibal Sanchez. He might be used to seeing a lot of fastballs, but this guy gives you a little variety. I mean, I think that was actually a high changeup that he got by with. I've been watching Sanchez's off-speed pitches early in the game because as a changeup curveball guy, dry weather, not a lot of humidity, that ball is slick. And it's much more difficult for a pitcher like that to get the feel of his pitches than it is for a power pitcher.
A 2-out runner at first now for Eric Sogard. Oakland had the leadoff double by Coco Crisp in the first. He was left stranded. Leadoff base hit by Seth Smith here in the second. You know, you made the comment regarding Sanchez earlier, Jim, that he's about as good a Game 3 postseason starter as you're going to find in the league. Most would agree. In fact, he's the first pitcher to lead the league in ERA and not start in either of the first 2 games of his postseason series since Greg Maddux in '98. And we all knew what Maddux was sharing a staff with.
John Smoltz and Tom Glavine.
pitch, Derek Sogard is hit in the air out to shallow left center. Austin Jackson, Johnny Peralta. Look at Johnny Peralta go in left field. Leadoff single left stranded, scoreless in Detroit. Welcome back to this Division Series telecast on MLB Network, presented by Geico, with Jim Cotton, Sam Ryan, Matt Vasgersian here in Detroit. As one may have guessed, the way the first two games of the series went down, we are scoreless early on this afternoon. Victor Martinez leads things off for the Tigers. It'll be Martinez, Peralta, and Avila against Jared Parker. Parker struck out the leadoff hitter Austin Jackson, yielded the two-out single to Miguel Cabrera, but no damage done as he starts Martinez with strike one. A ball and a strike to Victor Martinez, 2 of 8 so far in the division series, and who, after a slow beginning to 2013, recovering from having missed all of 2012, really turned it on at around the midway point this year and turned more into the Victor Martinez that Tiger fans were accustomed to watching after getting through that 2+ month period of not playing for quite a while. 2 balls and a strike.
It's pretty hard to believe with Cabrera, Fielder, and Victor Martinez, with the credentials you mentioned, that you could hold them to the way the Oakland A's have the first 2 games, second to the Red Sox in scoring during the year.
Well, the Tigers are working on 18 consecutive scoreless innings after the 3 runs against Bartolo Colon in the first inning in Oakland on Friday. It's a lineup that has gone cold since. Johnny Peralta waiting on deck. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The count to Victor Martinez. You know, though both lineups have been more or less contained by great starting pitching, each manager here has subscribed to a different theory in approaching Game 3. Bob Melvin still wants his better defensive team on the field. Perhaps with one exception, Derek Barton not starting today. He's the better defender at first base, but he wants Eric Sogard out there. He wants Reddick in right. Jim Leland, on the other hand, is willing to sacrifice a little defense for perhaps a bigger bat, and that's why Johnny Peralta gets the start this afternoon. Very different approaches by both skippers. You know, for the Tigers, the scoreless inning streak dates back into the regular season. Dating back to the last Saturday of the regular season, they've been held scoreless in 36 of their last 38 innings. Here's the payoff home to Martinez. Well hit into the opposite field. Cespedes has a line on it, and there's one away. So now Johnny Peralta. Well, we were all kind of curious as to what the ovation would be prior to swinging the bat for the first time.
Primarily encouraging, a smattering of boos, but those not familiar with it, of course, I'm sure many feel that he shouldn't be playing.
It was not the overwhelming welcome back that Rangers fans gave Nelson Cruz prior to game 163 last week with the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, you'd thought he was a returning war hero.
Yeah.
The 0-1 to Peralta behind 0-2 now.
You can see a little rust on those 2 swings. You can play in the instructional league or simulated games, but until you get against some live big league pitching like this, it's a little different.
Here's the 0-2 home from Jared Parker. Sharply hit to third for Donaldson. Josh has been busy already this afternoon. There were 2 away.
Just to button up that story, I think, Matt, that the way the suspensions came down, you know, it's almost by design that they ended just prior to postseason play. So these guys are only doing it, you know, by the rules, unlike Melky Cabrera last year, who was suspended, I believe, during postseason, and the Giants opted not to keep him on the roster for that. Let's take a look at the defense quickly for the A's, or look at the way they're defending Avila. They will use a lot more exaggerated shifts than the Tigers were. And most of the teams you'll see in baseball today have these spray charts where they kind of tell you where hitters hit. So there you're going to look at the second baseman and the shortstop all the way over on the first base side.
Here's the 1-0 home to Alex Avila, right into the shift. Hey, sometimes that math works out right, doesn't it? Turns out there's a method to the madness. Scoreless in Detroit. Before and after every postseason game, MLB Tonight has all the highlights and breakdowns from the award-winning analysts of MLB Network. All the postseason drama all in one place before and after every game on MLB Network, presented by Bacardi Oakart. And after today's Game 3 between the Tigers and A's, Adam Jones joins Greg Amsinger, Harold Reynolds, and Kevin Millar at the MLB Network studios. Coco Crisp leads things off in the A's half of inning number 3. Scoreless so far through 2 innings of play. Back with Jim Cotton, Sam Ryan, Matt Vasgersian, Coco Crisp, Josh Donaldson, and Jed Lowry against Anibal Sanchez, who's been able to strand the 3 base runners put aboard.
Yeah, and after that leadoff double, Sanchez quickly went to the off-speed pitch to start Crisp off with that time.
Coco's doubled in the first, his first hit this postseason, and he falls behind quickly, 0-2.
I'm sure Adam Jones back in our studio can identify with what Crisp is looking at right now. You see a lot of power pitchers. There's a strike right on the outside corner, and then all of a sudden you see a guy that you can't really get a pattern on. What's he going to throw when he's behind or ahead? Because this guy's got 4 pitches. He'll throw any one of them at any time.
There's a fastball that he lets fly high, and it's a ball and 2 strikes.
And with all the off-speed pitches, when he throws a fastball, say it's 91, to a hitter probably looks like it's 95, because they're not sitting on it all the time like you would off, say, a Scherzer or a Verlander.
Tried to shoot the corner and missed. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes. Gary Darling, the crew chief, calling balls and strikes this afternoon. It's a 6-man umpiring crew as per usual in the division series. And the gentleman that had the plate in Game 2 in Oakland, C.B. Buckner, is in right field today. There's the 2-2. First ball to Coco Crisp, a base hit, make him 2 for 2.
Got just enough of the changeup off the end of the bat and served it into center field. So there's the rest of the umpiring crew Matt was referring to.
You know, I mentioned C.B. Buckner because the big strikeout totals in Game 2, it appeared, and there was a lot of discourse afterwards online on the talk radio circuit, that C.B. had a pitcher-friendly strike zone. I think that's a fairer way to say a big strike zone. And there were a lot of folks that with Justin Verlander on the mound and a pitcher's friendly strike zone, they felt like that gave Verlander a big advantage. Again, all of this makes Oakland's Game 2 victory that much more important. I mean, you give Justin Verlander a big strike zone, and it's like giving Tyson a set of brass knuckles in his heyday.
Well, most
no shot.
Yeah, most pitchers, if they're quality pitchers that we're seeing in the postseason play, little bigger plate, but these days with the electronic umpire, they're not as flagrant as they used to be.
The 0-1 to Josh Donaldson, misses inside.
Now, you mentioned earlier, Matt, about stolen bases against Sanchez. Bob Melvin does not opt for the hit and run. 25 steals. Avila has not caught any of the would-be base stealers, so this would be a situation you might look for him to try.
Crisp has stolen 21 bags during the regular season. And as you mentioned, opponents on the Sanchez-Avila combination are 25 of 25 this year. Real interesting philosophies on the hit and run. The Tigers do it a lot. The A's don't do it very often at all, as Jim mentions, and for very different reasons. Here's the pitch home, and it stays high to Donaldson.
Yeah, Bob Melvin does not want to give up outs. He said our job is work the pitcher, make him throw a lot of pitches. You hit and run, you swing at a bad pitch, and you give up an out right away. Whereas Jim Leland starts his runners, you referred to it earlier, because he's got a lot of guys that don't have much speed, and he wants to try to stay out of the double play.
2 balls and a strike to Josh Donaldson. There goes Coco Crisp. Avila's throw down is not in time.
You see Avila quick footwork. It might have been an off-speed pitch, And that's about as close as you can get without getting him. In fact, Iglesias' foot on the bag, if his glove is back, if he lets the ball come to him, Chris might slide right into the tag. But again, a good jump off the pitcher, and that's what usually results in stolen bases.
So Chris in scoring position with nobody out for the second time in as many plate appearances for Donaldson, who gets out of the way of a fastball that time, and it's full 3-2. Jed Lowry waits next. Again, Oakland with an opportunity to crack the scoreboard here. Here is the 3-2 to Donaldson. Ball 4. That's the second walk of the afternoon by Sanchez.
Jim Leyland saying watch it bunt, although that's not been what Bob Melvin does a lot. However, with the hitters he's got coming up behind, you might see Lowry, even though he's the number 3 hitter in the lineup, you don't often see a number 3 hitter bunt. They might do it. You see the third baseman in, shortstop playing over towards second base.
First offering to Jed Lowry, misses. It's a ball and no strikes. Yeah, I'd be surprised to see Oakland bunt here, not only for the reasons you mentioned, Jim, with the number 3 hitter in the meat of the lineup due up, but because if you're not going to bunt in a 0-0 game with a runner at second and nobody out, I don't know what circumstance you would choose to bunt.
Boy, he's got a great hole between third and short, with Cabrera playing close to the bag.
1 ball and 1 strike to Jed Lowry, a 300 hitter this year with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, anything, rolled toward third or hit that way, Cabrera's not going to get any kind of a jump on the ball with his leg issues.
A leadoff single and stolen base by Coco Crisp. Donaldson draws the base on balls. 1 ball and 1 strike to Jed Lowry. Ball and 2 strikes.
That's that two-seam fastball at the hitter. Looks to the hitter like it's going to be inside, and it tails back across the inside corner.
The 1-2. You talked about Sanchez's repertoire early, Jim, and so often you say, especially in the postseason, everything revolves around the fastball for a successful starting pitcher. And while that may be true for Anibal Sanchez, it's a qualified truth. He throws the fastball less than 50% of the time. In fact, that infrequency is among the lowest in the American League. It's almost not fair to put R.A. Dickey on that list, the knuckleball guy. And it's an off-speed pitch that catches Lowry looking. Third strikeout this afternoon for Sanchez.
Yeah, it dropped just enough at the end. But I'm kind of surprised that Jed Lowry, with those pitches inside, did not at least offer on 1 or 2 of them. I mean, Fielder's a little bit off the line, but boy, you got to try to put the ball in play there.
Here's Brandon Moss now. Moss walked in his first try this afternoon. Well, to your point, Jim, and the vast repertoire of Sanchez, 3 strikeouts this afternoon, and they've come on 3 different pitches. Cespedes on a changeup, Vogt on a fastball, and then Lowry on that little slider that caught the inside corner. I'll tell you, Anibal Sanchez is a quicker worker than what we've seen so far this afternoon. His pace is very deliberate, in part because he's had runners aboard all 3 innings. 1-1 to Moss.
You'll find, I think, the pitchers that know a pitch or two ahead of time what they're going to do, and you should. You know, if I miss with this one, I'm coming back with this, or if I get to an 0-2 count, I'm going with that. You know, they've made those decisions ahead of time, so they're not going to wander around the mound and think about what will I do next.
The 1-1 to Moss. The same breaking ball that he punched out Lowry on.
Yeah, either they're not picking it up or they're just looking for something away, because he's dotting that inside corner. And there again, you see, now that looked like a breaking ball, but he's consistently pitching these left-hand hitters inside, which early in the count, that's where left-hand hitters like it. Those are pitches they could make an effort at hitting.
And he strikes out Moss with a changeup. Boy, that's some pitching.
Yeah.
4 strikeouts for Anibal Sanchez this afternoon.
Well, always an argument, is it good pitching or bad hitting? That was an excellent pitch, but you've seen 2 left-hand hitters take some pitches inside part of the plate without even offering it.
So it'll be up to Yoenis Cespedes now, who struck out in the first. The Oakland lineup now in 2+ games has struck out 33 times against Tiger pitching in this series. 0-1 to Cespedes.
Strikeout totals all around baseball reaching record levels, and until an organization takes their players at the lowest minors and teaches them to have a 2-strike approach, we're going to continue to see this, because it's the old chicks dig the long ball mentality. You know, they take 3 vicious swings and hope that they hit one.
You know, and in fairness, this Tiger staff, the best in terms of strikeouts, not only this year, but historically speaking. 1,428 strikeouts as a pitching staff, setting a new major league team record. Those guys largely responsible. Scherzer and Verlander both brilliant in games 1 and 2 of this series. 1-1 to Cespedes, chopped to third and through Cabrera. Here's Crisp around to score, and Oakland is the first to get on the board this afternoon. 1-0 A's.
Had a lot of topspin, difficult hop, but I'm sure it'll be scored in error. There you see Cabrera kind of give just a little ground, and that ball with a lot of topspin hit. There's Crisp with 2 out, running and scoring easily.
Boy, that's potentially a larger miscue than just 1 run scoring, because now Sanchez has to face a guy who's been his most difficult out in this lineup and perhaps in the league. Seth Smith, after the 2nd inning base hit, 8 for 20 against Anibal Sanchez. Donaldson at second. Cespedes aboard after the error. And a strike to Seth Smith.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed Anibal Sanchez looking over at Miguel Cabrera, kind of giving him a little encouragement, because he knows, well, he may have let in 1, but he might drive in 3 for me. So he's gonna keep encouraging him.
Oh, and 2.
Another look at the ground ball. There's the encouraging motion that Sanchez gestured toward Cabrera.
Well, there's been so much discussion about how the lat, the back, the oblique, all the ailments have taken away Cabrera's lower half at the plate. Not sure that played in that miscue defensively or not. And Smith's hanging around 0-2.
Well, you can see the ground ball. He couldn't square himself up. You know, a third baseman, even though you don't have, a lot of them don't have foot speed, but they have lateral movement. And right there you see he's not really squared up. He's playing that ball off to the side. Most of the time a third baseman would shift that left leg, get his body in front of it at least. And Cabrera physically not able to do that.
2-strike count to Seth Smith. Runners aboard, a run in with 2 away. Seth Smith ended the regular season with plenty of momentum, as many of the Oakland hitters did. He hit .400 over his last 20 games dating back to the end of August. You could say the same of Cespedes, Josh Reddick, and a number of Oakland hitters. And then that layoff came after the final Sunday of the regular season and the beginning of this division series. And it's almost as though you're taking guys in the middle of the winter right out of the cage for the first time. The next 0-2. A ball and 2 strikes now. Smith trying to pick up 2 base runners. Donaldson and Cespedes aboard with a run in. Tomorrow, game 4 of the series right here in Detroit. Dan Straley and Doug Fister. And it's going to be an elimination game for somebody. Here is the 1-2.
Boy, Avila's had quite a workout already back there in the first 3 innings. And it's comforting as a pitcher when you're throwing a lot of change-ups, off-speed pitches. You want to try to make him chase something, to have a catcher back there that you trust will block the ball. And here's an example of it. You see Avila shift his weight. Nice pick.
Tiger pitching in the series. Oakland gets an unearned run in the 3rd. At the bottom of the inning, it's 1-0 A's.
Well, Miguel Cabrera had a little reaction after that ground ball. He came in. He pointed out to the infield like the infield was all chopped up and took a bad hop on it. However, when you look right here, sure, it took a high hop, but if you can't square your body up in front of it, that's what's going to happen. Kind of went off the top of his glove. You know, infielders are out there. The infield ground crew doesn't rake it every inning, so you have to anticipate, smooth it out with your feet, as most infielders do.
Yeah, that was how the A's played their first run of the afternoon. An advantage for Jared Parker to work with for the first time today as he approaches the 8, 9th, and top of the order hitters. Infante, Iglesias, and Jackson. A hit and a strikeout so far against Parker. Omar Infante, 2 hits so far in the series, making his 3rd straight start at second base. 2 balls and a strike to the 2010 All-Star. To 3-1 now. The base on balls during the regular season at times were an issue for Parker. 63 walks, 134 strikeouts. That walk to strikeout ratio not really at that 3-1 where most pitching coaches like to see it. But on the 3-1 count, he gets Infante to pop it into shallow right. So 1 away for Parker, who took a little different route to get to game 3 than the guy on the other side of the scorecard, Anibal Sanchez. Sam Ryan with a little bit more on that story.
Yeah, because, Matty, if you recall, Game 2 was Saturday night, the late game in Oakland. So what the Tigers did, they sent Anibal Sanchez a little bit earlier in the day on Saturday. He watched the game on TV. He told me yesterday he was well rested. As for Jared Parker, Bob Melvin told me they gave him the option to go early ahead of the team. And he said, no, I want to stay here with the team. So he stayed with the team. They didn't land in Detroit until 6:30 yesterday morning. And keep in mind, both pitchers had to be here at Comerica yesterday for media availability. So Jared Parker was a little tired yesterday, but the difference this year, he told me, he was just a bunch of nerves last year in the ALDS here at Comerica. He said, no nerves this time around, and I'm going to sleep well tonight.
Sam, thanks. And, you know, that revelation came as a surprise to me, Jim, as Parker works 1 ball and 1 strike to Jose Iglesias. There's his pitching coach, Michigander Kurt Young. Parker threw the ball pretty well in Game 1 against Justin Verlander last year. Granted, he lost both decisions in games 1 and 5, but it did not look at the time like nerves were his problem. A ball and a strike to Jose Iglesias, who squared around as though to bunt and lays off. It's 2-1. 6 1/3 in both starts. Again, both were losers. You do the ERA with the 4 and the 3 runs allowed, and it's an ERA of 4.26 in those 2 games. He was 23 years old at the time in his first big league season. Iglesias with a sharply hit ground ball for Lowry. At 6 in a row, retired by Parker.
Well, Sam's point about Parker not getting the rest and being tired, I think when you're a Major League Baseball player, and I think today's players' travel conditions are much more difficult with night games on getaway days. I always had the expression, if you're going to be a ball player, you learn to sleep in November, because a lot of times you don't have time to sleep during the season. You play on holidays, double headers, nights run into days, and that's just the way it is. You go on adrenaline, and when the season's over, you hope you play late October, and then you decompress and catch up on your rest.
Here's Austin Jackson now with 2 away. A strikeout Vector in his first try. A broken background ball for Lowry with a fancy grab and throw to Moss to retire the side in order. Nothing in the Detroit half of the 3rd. On to the 4th. It's still 1-0 Oakland. Coming up after the World Series on MLB Network, 3 primetime shows and the only morning show dedicated to baseball. All the off-season news, it's on MLB Network beginning Monday, November 4th. 1-0 Oakland as Anibal Sanchez continues in the top half of the 4th inning. It'll be the bottom of the order for Oakland: Reddick, Vogt, and Sogard.
Yeah, and Anibal Sanchez could use a clean, quick inning. Talked about Oakland drives up the pitch count, and so much attention paid to that these days. He'd like to be able to take his team deep in the game. He's got 3 guys to do it with. Josh Reddick has really struggled. Vogt in the on-deck circle took some wild swings in his last at-bat, and then Sogard, the number 9 hitter.
Yeah, to your point, it was a 30-pitch 3rd inning for Anibal Sanchez. A ball and 2 strikes now to Josh Reddick. He has struck out 4 in addition to allowing the unearned run on the other side of the scorecard. Jared Parker has retired 7 straight. More pitching and defense in this series this afternoon. Appeal down to 3rd, and that's where Mike DeMuro said he did not swing the bat.
And that's what Mike DeMuro's looking at. Did he intend to swing? Of course, I think once the bat leaves your shoulder, you intend to swing. Just having to hold up.
Reddick with a high drive into right field. Hunter looking back, and that one is gone. For 24 in the postseason entering the afternoon. A big solo home run here to lead off the 4th.
And boy, the left-hand hitters like it down and in. I mentioned how both Lowry and Moss had taken so many pitches, but lefties love that ball down and in. That's exactly where Reddick got it after the check swing and lofts it over the right field wall.
A ball and a strike now to Stephen Vogt. Josh Reddick's first home run since September 15th. And Anibal Sanchez knew it.
Yeah, I think you tend to recognize that sound.
Vogt with a drive to right. Hunter looking up on this ball, and it's off the base of the fence. Stephen Vogt trying for 3rd. He'll be there without a play.
Well, instead of an easy, quick inning, he gets a check swing from Josh Reddick, then a home run, and there's another breaking ball. See, the breaking ball not quite as crisp, and I don't know if it's the dry, cool weather that Sanchez isn't getting a good grip on it, but that one just kind of hung right there in the middle of the strike zone, and Vogt took advantage of it.
Oh, yeah. Look at that catcher getting around the pillows.
Yeah, right about there, he knows he's got a triple.
That's right. It's a gun show. Here's Eric Sogard now. The Tigers play the infield in. Sogard swinging away. Somewhere in the world, Matt Garza is tweeting about Eric Sogard as we speak.
While he's tweeting, Jim Leyland has one of his regular starters during the season, Rick Porcello, warming up in the bullpen. Sinker baller. Porcello right there.
There's a chopper to the drawn-in second baseman Infante, and that's the first down of the inning. And the reason I bring up the tweeting, especially with Matt Garza, is from an incident earlier this season, a Tigers-A's game where Sogard got to Garza with a couple of bunts, and it really sent Garza to the tweet factory. Expressed his displeasure for the strategy on social media, and it was talked about quite a bit in Oakland and in Arlington. There's Coco Crisp now with the runner at third and one away. So much for the squeeze play with Sogard. Infield still in for the Tigers. Crisp is 2 for 2 today. The home run against Sanchez doesn't happen often. He yielded only 9 in over 180 innings during the regular season. In fact, had the lowest home run rate in the American League. Coco pops it into shallow left. Peralta is there. Voigt's going to try it. The throw to the plate is not in time. Three 3-0 Oakland.
Well, Crisp is doing what Bob Melvin said he had to do. He's driving the bus right now, getting on and driving a run. And I'll tell you, Johnny Peralta, for not playing a lot of left field, there's a pitch move back across the plate. I don't think Crisp thought he had enough of it, but this is a pretty good throw. It took a soft bounce on the infield grass there. It didn't skip where Avila could maybe catch and tag. It took a high bounce, but it was an accurate throw.
Josh Donaldson now with 2 out and 2 in the inning. In just 3+ innings this afternoon, Oakland has matched its extra base hit output from the first 2 games combined. The Crisp double, Reddick's home run, and Voigt's triple. That's headed for the gap. Hunter closing ground, and a 9-time Gold Glover prevents any further damage in the top half of the 4th. However, the swinging A's are swinging it here in Detroit this afternoon. 2 in the 4th inning to take a 3-0 Welcome back to this Division Series telecast on MLB Network presented by Geico with Sam Ryan and Jim Cott. Matt Vasgersian here in Detroit, where the Oakland A's have an early 3-0 lead in Game 3 of this best-of-5. It'll be Torrey Hunter leading things off in the home half of inning number 4. Hunter, Cabrera, and Fielder against Jared Parker.
And Matty, starting pitchers, they want a rhythm to the game. And right now, they'll call it shutdown innings. It's so important to shut the opposition down after your team has put a couple on the board. And big challenge for Parker this innings because he has to deal with the heart of the Detroit lineup. Granted, they haven't been productive thus far. That's the battle cry. When you get 3 runs as a pitcher, you run out there and say, let's get them out in a hurry and get our team right back in the batter's box.
It is a sleeping giant, speaking collectively of this Tigers lineup. It's between Hunter, Cabrera, and Fielder. You're talking about 17 combined all-star appearances. And they have been held conspicuously quiet in the series. Two balls and a strike to count to Torrey Hunter. Recall that Jared Parker opened the third against Omar Infante with a 3-1 count, and then Infante popped to right. I would not be surprised for a moment to see Hunter take. Or whack a 3-1 pitch into left. Leadoff single in the Tigers' half of the fourth. That's the second Detroit hit of the afternoon. And the table is set for the big guys. Miguel Cabrera is singled in the first, came with 2 away and the base is empty. Big career numbers against the Oakland A's. Over 300 against Oakland, a slugging percentage of over 600. It should be noted, however, that before folks in the Bay Area get too concerned and feel taken advantage of, Cabrera's hitting over 300 lifetime and slugging over 500 against 9 of the 14 American League clubs. He is an equal opportunity destroyer. Parker out of the stretch for just the second at bat today. Swings and sends a drive well struck out to right, read it back. Crisp is there in right center to make the catch, and there is one away.
Well, if you're Jared Parker, you breathe a little sigh of relief. You got Cabrera to hit it to the deepest part of the ballpark. And Crisp there to get it back in, and Hunter retreats to first base.
So here's Fielder now. He popped in the infield to retire the side in the first. We talked about Fielder's career postseason numbers the last time he was at the plate. Unfortunately for Tiger fans, those numbers become even less impressive with runners on base. Just a 170 postseason hitter with runners aboard. You know,
if I'm Jared Parker, I don't worry too much about Torrey Hunter. I know he has speed. I'd be a little more concerned with Prince Fielder and Victor Martinez. Hunter could steal second and third, and if you get these two guys out, he's still not going to score.
A strike to make it 1-1. Victor Martinez, the switch hitting DH this afternoon, waiting next. He lined out in the second on a well-hit ball to open the frame. So far, A's pitching coach Kurt Young has to like the way things have gone for Jared Parker. Vogt wants it on the corner. 1-1 is delivered there and fouled away. A ball and 2 strikes. 505 consecutive games played by Prince Fielder. That is the longest active consecutive game streak in baseball. We got quite a ways to go until we get to Cal Ripken.
Change up.
Fielder soft liner foul. Donaldson clangs against the wall.
Nice effort. Took a quick look to see where he was, and then fortunately he was able to kind of bend his knees and cushion that slide against the fence. Change up the last pitch. Those that watch a lot of baseball familiar with it, but the signs, like a lot of things in baseball, been the same for years. One's a fastball, two's a curve, three's a slider. Wiggle your fingers is a change, like that.
It's fouled away. The changeup is Jared Parker's swing and miss pitch. Opponents have hit just about $170 on it this year, and the miss percentage on his change, as you can see, is much higher than league average, and in fact best in Major League Baseball. He'll get a whiff on almost 50% of his changeups. Fielder doing a nice job to hang around on that pitch. Still the ball and 2 strikes. Hunter stays put at first, and Prince lays off. It's 2-2.
That's probably one of the, or is the biggest difference, Matt, in young, talented pitchers like Parker and many more like him than pitchers of my era, is their secondary pitches. They have more of them, and they have more command of them. I mean, the changeup now is a strikeout weapon. It used to be just an off-speed pitch to try to get the hitter out front and hit a pop-up.
Field. Hunter wraps around to third, and the Tigers are in business here in the bottom of the 4th. What a fine plate appearance by Prince Fielder.
Well, they kept going away with the changeup. Opted not to try the fastball up and in, and Fielder did a nice job of, I don't know whether he was anticipating that, but he did a nice job of waiting and just poking it over the third baseman's head. Actually, from that swing, it kind of looked like he did look for it out there.
So now the switch hitting DH, and perhaps the best pure hitter in today's lineup for the Tigers, Victor Martinez. Stay outside, and Martinez falls behind 0-1. Hunter led off the inning with a base hit, and then Fielder's one-out single put runners at first and third. 20 scoreless innings and counting, and that's a number that Victor Martinez hopes goes away right here. Nobody around these parts wants to be reminded of the 2012 World Series. And they come inside to him on 0-1, and Martinez bangs it past Moss into right field. Hunter scores. 3-1 Oakland.
They didn't come inside the fielder. They tried it to Victor Martinez. Got a little too much of the plate. And down the line. And you see right there, as Bob Melvin said, Martin is the better fielder of the two first basemen. Moss known more for his hitting. Not that that was an easy play, but I think a little quicker reaction. He could have got a glove on it, at least gotten one out at first base.
Kurt Young comes out for a quick visit. Runners at second and third, a run in, one away for Johnny Peralta. And now this sold-out Comerica Park crowd is every bit into the proceedings. Oh, and 1 to Peralta. He grounded out to the left side back in the second. The less than organic fit with Peralta as a left fielder today has already been apparent. Stephen Vogt able to score on a sac fly to left on a shallow fly ball. And Peralta would love to get some of that back right here at the plate. 1-1. The Tigers led the American League with batting average with runners in scoring position this year. Hit .282 in spots like this. Again, the best in the circuit. Peralta cashes in. Fielder scores. Martinez scores. And this game is tied at 3.
Wasn't a line drive, but it pays off for Jim Leyland. Actually, it's a pretty good pitch. Parker runs it in on the handle, but Peralta fights it off, and he rewards Jim Leyland's decision. He said, I'll sacrifice some defense if I can get somebody to knock in some runs.
And both of those things have happened this afternoon. Here's Alex Avila now. The 2011 All-Star has homered in his career against Jared Parker. Well, here we are, not even through 4 complete innings this afternoon, Jim. And the A's and Tigers have combined to score as many runs as they did in games 1 and 2 combined. Avila falls behind 0-2.
Good changeup there. That's the one he would have probably liked the Prince fielder. That bottom fell out of that one. The one the fielder hung just high enough for him to poke it into left.
Omar Infante waiting next with 1 away, a runner on, and 3 runs in. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Avila.
Nice block by Stephen Vogt. Looked like the ball hit the plate, actually hit in front of the plate. Vogt does a nice job again. Things that catchers practice on in spring training by the hour. Just blocking that ball and keeping it in front of him, prevent the runner from advancing.
It's one of the reasons Stephen Vogt is here in the big leagues with the A's. The catching dynamic has changed a lot since opening day. Parker again out of the stretch, the 1-2. Another change. This one misses low. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Well, Jared Parker was sailing along. Had retired 7 in a row before the single by Torrey Hunter. He got the loud out against Cabrera. Fielder with a base hit. Martinez doubled in a run. And then Peralta singles in 2 to tie it. The Tigers are not a running team. And not only do the Tigers not run as a team, Johnny Peralta is not a guy that's going to steal a lot of bases. In fact, Detroit has stolen fewer bases than any team in Major League Baseball this year. The 2-2, an excuse me roller out to third for Donaldson. Off balance throw is in time to get Avila. Peralta advances into scoring position now with 2 away. A base hit from Omar Infante can give the Tigers the first lead of the afternoon. This first pitch to the Tigers' second baseman will be Parker's 25th of the inning. Into the corner and foul.
It almost seems that was a breaking ball, rare for Parker. It's mostly fastball changeup, but he's gone to that changeup so often that he's never really shown the Tigers that good. He's got a good fastball. And boy, when they can sit in that batter's box and kind of anticipate a changeup, you don't have to hit it hard. You just got to do what Fielder did.
One is grounded at third. There's Donaldson for it to retire the side and prevent any further trouble. However, the 20 consecutive innings scoreless streak is over with an exclamation point. Hunter, Fielder, Martinez, and Peralta combined to tie it at 3. presenting Scion FRS. It leaves everyone else in the dust. And sponsored in part by Axe Hairstyling, because first impressions count. And by Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey. Fly straight, drink responsibly. A brand new storyline in Detroit this afternoon. Back with Jim Cotton, Sam Ryan, Matt Vasgersian. A 3-3 ball game as we head to the top of the fifth. Jed Lowry, Brandon Moss, and Yoenis Cespedes for Oakland.
And now it's Anibal Sanchez's turn to see if he can come up with a shutdown inning. He has to go through the middle of the Oakland lineup, where those innings are so important to a starting pitcher, just to keep the flow and the rhythm of the game going for his team.
Well, Sanchez has had a hard time so far this afternoon retiring the leadoff batter. They have reached base safely in all 4 innings. In fact, Reddick led off the 4th with a solo home run.
Yeah, his off-speed pitches haven't been as crisp. The curve or the change. His best pitch has been that two-seam fastball coming in on the left-hand hitters, riding back across the corner.
Lowry, Moss, and Cespedes here in the 5th. This part of the order has been held without a base hit so far this afternoon. Foul tip gets a piece of Alex Avila. He can't hang on to it.
You notice the mask of Al Avila. I was talking to Ray Fosse, former catcher for the A's, who's taken plenty of blows. He's now gone back to the old steel mask. For a long time, catchers using a titanium. He's taken a couple blows on foul balls. Of course, concussion's a big issue for catchers these days.
6 strikeouts this afternoon for Anibal Sanchez. Well, Sanchez, one of the 3 Tiger starters this year to post a 200-plus strikeout season, along with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. And these kind of years don't come along very often. In fact, the Tigers of this season are just the 3rd team ever to have 3 pitchers enjoy a 200-plus strikeout campaign. And Jim Cott did it as a part of that 67 Twins.
I must have pitched 400 innings to get that many strikeouts.
Here's Brandon Moss now.
I tell you, Sanchez did what Parker couldn't. As they used to say when you left the dugout as a pitcher, old Broadway term, get that leading lady. Get that #1 hitter. That's most important.
And Moss quickly behind 0-2.
Yeah, he's dealing now. I mean, it's almost like smelling the finish line for a starter. You're back in the game. That had some good drop to it. Must have been a changeup. You can see it in his eyes. It's almost like this is his 9th inning. He's saying, if I can shut him down here, get my team back in the batter's box, it'll have a big influence on the outcome of this game.
A couple of ace hitters here that can change the dialogue with one swing of the bat. Moss hit 30 during the regular season. And after the home run derby at Citi Field this summer, everybody knew what Yoenis Cespedes was capable of doing. He waits on deck. Moss with a drive to right. Torrey Hunter doesn't even move. That one is gone. Brandon Moss was 1 for 8 with 7 strikeouts in the series until that swing of the bat.
They run through the congratulatory tunnel there. Wow, that thing got out in a hurry. Looked like they tried to get a fastball up. It moved out across the plate. Most left-hand hitters, low ball hitters, but like Pedro Alvarez did for the Pirates, he got on top of that high fastball and turned it over to right field.
Here's Yoenis Cespedes now. Oakland back out on top by a run on the 2nd home run of the afternoon for the A's. And it marks the first time since last September that Anibal Sanchez has been touched up for more than one home run in a game.
And now he's throwing some grudge fastballs right now. He reached back and threw those two, uncharacteristic. There's his reaction.
I'd say he wasn't pleased with that.
No, and now he's rushed 3 of them up there. It's taken him completely out of his rhythm.
Two balls and a strike to count to Yoenis Cespedes. A perennial Sanchez problem waits on deck in Seth Smith. What do you think of that homecoming king tunnel thing that the A's do after a home run?
It's nice. Yeah, it's, I'd rather see that than guys dancing in the end zone.
They have that kind of, I call it almost a high school camaraderie. And I mean that as a compliment. The Cespedes swings and misses.
Yeah, it's not you're not drawing attention to yourself. It's a team thing.
For sure.
And that's good.
And that's kind of how they go. Nothing really jumps out at you on the stat sheet with Oakland. Yeah, Moss hit 30 home runs during the course of the regular season. But as the national media may have been concerned, they were a quiet 30. That's not a fair statement, but that's kind of the way it was.
Well, it's like their third baseman. He's a quiet MVP. There's the home run tunnel. He's a quiet MVP candidate when you look at he won't win it, but Josh Donaldson put up some pretty impressive numbers.
You know, back to your football thing, to take nothing away from the 80s vintage Washington Redskins, but the Oakland A's the last couple of years have been something of a fun bunch.
Oh yeah.
And Cespedes adds a base hit with one away in the 5th.
I think Jim Leyland has got to realize Sanchez, not the usual Sanchez that he saw all year this year. The 2 home runs are an indication of that. Just a little sluggish. He's sending Avila out to the mound. Maybe give the bullpen a little more time to get ready, particularly with a guy stepping into the batter's box that has been very, very tough on him.
Yeah, the bullpen is hot behind him. Rick Porcello was the loser in Game 2.
I thought we'd see Jim Leyland walk out there, but he's going to give him another shot.
So here's Seth Smith now.
Unless this could also be part of the ploy. If your relief pitcher that you want to bring in isn't ready, you tell the pitcher, throw to first base a couple times, and then they'll ring the phone or raise the hat and say, now he's ready. I think he'd like to bring the left-hander in.
Yeah, Jose Alvarez getting hot in a hurry. Ball and no strikes, the count to Seth Smith. He has singled and struck out today. There had to come a point in this series, and we've apparently reached it today, where the home run would play a role. All the home run thunder that the Tigers bring in terms of the backs of the baseball cards. And an Oakland A's team who, for the 2nd straight year, have led Major League Baseball in home runs after the All-Star break. Next offering home to Smith is fouled away, and it's 1-1. Seth Smith with plenty of postseason experience, not only with the Oakland A's, but 2 postseason dances in his time with the Colorado Rockies. The storyline last year in the division series, as far as Oakland was concerned, was young players with a lot of postseason inexperience. That no longer applies this year. Bob Melvin deservedly so, gets a lot of the credit for what's happened in Oakland. A 94-win campaign last year, 96 victories this season. He's not a manager that likes the attention. Same can be said of Jim Leyland. But with much less, and I mean no disrespect, Bob Melvin has put the A's position by position in a place to succeed for the last couple of years. The next offering is Smith. That one stays upstairs as well. And now Sanchez has fallen behind 3 balls and a strike with Josh Reddick up next.
And Billy Beane would get a lot of credit for that also. You know, the Moneyball film didn't really portray Billy Beane as to what he's done. The A's success hasn't been about Moneyball. It's been about good pitching and picking up bargains like they did this year. Billy Beane's done a good job of providing Bob Melvin with that kind of talent.
It's awfully tough to shake that tag, you know. Yeah. I mean, when they make a movie about you, and when Brad Pitt's in it,
right,
they're going to think you're that forever, and that's not what this A's team is so much.
Wasn't what that one was either. It was Zito, Mulder, and Hudson, 3 great pitchers. Well, I don't know if this is sent in from the. I mean, he's only inspiring Cespedes a little bit more because it's kind of proven they haven't been able to throw base stealers out. He hasn't been able to hold them or to deliver the ball to the plate quickly enough. And anytime you're throwing over that often with a 3-1 count, you got to get your focus back on making a pitch to Seth Smith. Might just be taking out a little frustration, throwing that fastball to first base.
Cespedes just 7 for 14 as a base stealer this year. Close at first base, my goodness. And that wasn't even the good move that time.
No, I think Cespedes taking a little nap there. I mean, you got to pay attention.
Well, if he went in belly first, he could get there quicker with the oven mitt. He's wearing that big protective mitt over his left hand, and you see that a lot around baseball these days when players get aboard. Smith with a drive into the opposite field. That ball's well hit and carrying. Peralta back, and that one's gone. Oakland's 3rd home run of the afternoon. That'll knock Anibal Sanchez from the mix, and the A's have taken a 6-3 lead. Santa Maria. Jim Leyland has made the move to his bullpen. 6-3 Oakland. We'll be right back. this afternoon. Nobody saw this coming. Sanchez unable to finish 5. He gives up 3 home runs and yields on the bad end of a 6-3 score. So now it's Josh Reddick facing the new pitcher after the T-Mobile pitching change. It's the left-hander Jose Alvarez.
I'm sure Jim Leyland right now, he started to head up that step. It looked like a time or two, and said, well, I'm going to give Sanchez one more hitter, which was a bit surprising. Smith had a lot of success against Sanchez, but the past history and as successful as Anibal has been, you get a little street credit for that. Your manager will hang with you for a while. Shocking. As tough as it was for runs to be scored, and now all of a sudden each starter gets 3 runs and neither one can go out and shut the opposition down. So, as usual, these games end up in the hand of the bullpen. The first 2 was primarily the dominance of the starters, but most games these days, and that'll be the case today before it's over.
This is reminding me of the night that you and I spent here, the afternoon you and I spent here almost a year ago, as Reddick goes chasing. Game 2 of the series.
Right.
Tommy Malone and Doug Fister. And a lead that kept going back and forth.
Pitch moved out across the plate about belt high, and give Smith credit for driving it, but it also, you could tell the way Peralta drifted. This ball is really carrying out to left center.
Here's Stephen Vogt now. He has tripled and scored a run today. The American League's ERA leader. Driven from the afternoon after giving up 6 runs in 4 1/3. Jose Alvarez, for his part, was named the Tigers minor league pitcher of the year this season. 8-6 with an ERA under 3 at AAA Toledo this year. 2 balls and a strike is his count to Stephen Vogt. Down to 3-1 with Eric Sogard waiting on deck. Oakland felt a lot better about their chances at the start of the series once into the Detroit bullpen. No disrespect, but you'd feel better about anybody if you could get past Verlander and Scherzer. And there's ball 4 to Vogt. So a 2-out base runner aboard now for Eric Sogard. 6 runs on 8 hits for an Oakland offense that had really been non-existent the first 2 games of the series. And Jared Parker has that cushion to work with once again. Sogard dumps a fly ball into shallow right. Hunter is there to put it away. Nothing further in the 5th. However, a pair of home runs have reclaimed the 3-run advantage. Moss and Smith go deep, and it's 6-3 A's. Division Series action continues on TBS. The Cardinals try to fight off elimination against the Pirates in Game 4. Then the Rays look to avoid a sweep in Tampa against the Red Sox. And in the nightcap, the Dodgers try to close out the Braves in Los Angeles. All today on TBS. Jose Iglesias leads things off in the Tigers' half of the 5th. The number 9 batter followed by Austin Jackson and Torrey Hunter as Jared Parker goes back to work.
Yeah, he's going to see if he can stop the bleeding. He couldn't do it in the 4th. Sanchez couldn't do it in the 5th.
Jared Parker, one of 3 Oakland A's since the team relocated to Oakland in 1968. As Iglesias sends that one toward the gap, but it's Cespedes to make the catch. 1 away. Parker, as I mentioned, one of 3 Oakland A's younger than Sonny Gray to make his first postseason start, and to take nothing away from Jared Parker or Barry Zito or Vida Blue, who were all younger than Sonny Gray when they made their first postseason assignment. None of them were better than Sonny Gray on Saturday night in Oakland. And Sonny joins us live here from Detroit. Sonny, congratulations on such a magnificent night. Have you had time to digest this whole thing, or are you right back into the series looking forward to your next assignment?
Yeah, actually, it was nice having an off day after that, you know, that long win or the long game. So it was nice to kind of have that off day and get our thoughts back together as a team and come out here today and play and try to go up on this series.
Sonny's usually a nickname, but I noticed that's actually your given name, isn't it? Where'd it come from?
It's given, yeah. It's my grandfather. It was my grandfather's nickname. So my mom and my dad apparently had a big debate whether they should name me it or not, and you know, it turns out I kind of like it.
And you're a Vandy guy like David Price.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of Vandy guys playing in the playoffs, which is really awesome to see.
Yeah.
3 balls and no strikes. The count to Austin Jackson. We're visiting with Sonny Gray, Game 2 hero for the Oakland A's. One of a couple of Game 2 heroes. And Sonny, I would imagine that part of what made Saturday night even sweeter for you is the fact that the guy that you worked with in AAA, Stephen Vogt, was the guy that cashed in with the game-winning hit. I mean, the Sacramento River Cats have never been better represented than they were Saturday night.
Yeah, it was crazy. Vogt coming through with that big hit. A guy who I've thrown to all year long, it was really nice to have him up here. And yeah, thrown to him all year long, and then he comes up in the 9th inning and with the bases loaded and does the job. And it was awesome, really awesome moment for him, and just so happy for him. He couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
You know, Sonny, I was talking to some of the Tiger hitters.
Down low, and it's 1-1.
It was interesting listening to Charlie Morton talk yesterday about his recovery from the right elbow surgery and how during the course of his rehab he scrapped some of his pitches. He used to throw a cutter, used to throw a lot more four-seamers, used to throw an occasional slider. He's really simplified his arsenal.
And he gets ahead of Holiday. 1-2. Charlie Morton 0-6 in 8 starts since his last win against the Cardinals back in 11. And Holiday stays alive by fouling it off. Lifetime, Charlie Morton 2-9 with a 6.52 ERA against this ball club. 0-2 this year. And it goes on and on. Checking his swing is Holiday as they check with the first base umpire Jim Joyce. He did not go around.
Very close that time.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Matt Holiday. Infield and outfield playing back and straight away, and a shot base hit past Walker into right field. So Matt Holiday has his 3rd hit of the series, a 2-out single. And that'll bring up Matt Adams.
Well, that's the approach that the Cardinals.
It's been there for me ever since.
0-1 the count to Torrey Hunter, batting with 1 out and 1 on. And Sonny, before we let you go, the at-bat that you had against Torrey Hunter back in Oakland, where you missed a little up and in, and then Torrey called time and shook his head a little bit. And Torrey Hunter is one of the gentlemen in the game. And later on, he admitted that he was trying to get in your head a little bit, and apparently that didn't work. Is that something that you were aware of at the time? Did you suspect that that was what Torrey was doing?
You know, for my short time being up here and knowing Torrey and knowing how every single guy in baseball talks about him, that's actually the first thing that came to my head was that, you know, that he was, you know, maybe trying to get in there or something. And, you know, it kind of lit a little fire and, you know, gave me a little extra adrenaline for sure.
Well, listen, we appreciate you taking some time with us during the game, Sonny. Best of luck moving forward, and it was a lot of fun watching you pitch on Saturday.
Thanks, guys.
Hunter was moved out of the way there by Jared Parker and has a 1-1 count here with 1 out and a runner aboard. Tigers down 3.
And he's just trying to work he's trying to work out a base on balls. He wants to get up there. He wants to get on for Cabrera.
Chop to third. Donaldson with a great pickup to Sogard for 1, and the A's double him off.
That is pretty. Woo.
With Miguel Cabrera looming on deck, Oakland turns a big double play. Nothing in the Tigers' half of the 5th.
Not for Tiger fans. But
Rookie left-hander Jose Alvarez continues here in the top half of the 6th as Rick Porcello stays hot in the Tiger bullpen. It'll be Crisp, Donaldson, and Lowry for the A's. Coco's been a big part of the A's 6-3 lead this afternoon. A double, a base hit. He scored a run, driven in another. And we'll add a ground ball to shortstop to that line. Jose Iglesias, a brilliant defender, makes that play rather routinely, as difficult a chance as it may have been. 1 away.
Very Derek Jeter-like. I think Derek Jeter, from the time he came up, no one makes the play, that play, as well as Derek. And Iglesias, very similar. Those short hops are tough.
Oakland bullpen is getting hot behind Jared Parker for the first time this afternoon. Dan Otero, the right-hander, is up and warming. So here's Josh Donaldson now. Though just 0 for 2, he has played some very strong third base.
Yeah, that play right there, I mean, it almost knocked his glove off. And just, it turns into an easy double play, but if that just caroms one way or the other, you got Cabrera hitting with 2 men on representing the tying run. And that is one of those not in the box score. If the A's win this game, you look back, and that's worth a save. I pointed out that Donaldson started the season as a catcher. He didn't. He started his career as a catcher.
Settled in and really found a home at third base in Oakland. His is a contract that's under club control for a couple more years. And though he was not named an All-Star this year, for understandable reasons, none of which had to do with his performance, it's a very crowded position in the American League. He has established himself as one of the premier third basemen in the circuit. It's a real renaissance period of American League third baseman. I know that kind of a fancy term to throw out there. However, when Adrian Beltre and Josh Donaldson are left off the All-Star team at that position, you know how good it is. Evan Longoria, because he was nicked up in the first half, not named an All-Star this year. Donaldson sprays that into the opposite field. Well hit. Hunter is back on it to the deepest part of the ballpark. Man alive, is the ball carrying here this afternoon. The Cardinals trying to stave off elimination. They're in progress with the Pirates. For an update, we check in with Matt Yaloff back at the MLB Network studios. Matt, thanks. Pirates Cardinals has turned into the good series that everybody thought it would be when they drew each other in the division set. 2 out, bases empty now for Jed Lowry. Lowry hitless today and hitless in the series, 0 for 10 with 5 strikeouts. A ball and a strike from Jose Alvarez. Brandon Moss waits next. He's hit 1 of the 3 home runs for Oakland today. One of these 2 teams will be facing that same elimination scenario that the Cardinals are faced with today, that the Braves are faced with later on today, and that the Rays are faced with this afternoon. All teams trailing in their best of 5 series. A strike to Lowry, 2-2.
See Porcello just tossing out the bullpen. I think what Jim Leland would like, with Alvarez being a lefty and all the A's left-hand hitters, is if he can stay out of trouble, he can eat up some innings. And obviously you'd like to save your veteran pitchers for when you have a chance or with a lead.
High fly ball into right for Torrey Hunter to retire the side. For the first time this afternoon, the Oakland A's go down in order. To the bottom of the 6th, it's the A's in control on top 6-3. Get ready because the countdown to 2014 is just beginning with TV's only morning show dedicated just to baseball. Join me and Harold Reynolds for Hot Stove weekdays 9 Eastern. 9 Eastern. Wow, that's early. Beginning November 4th right here on MLB Network. A's have gone to the bullpen after 5 innings from Jared Parker. They turn to the right-hander Dan Otero here in the 6th. Otero made his postseason debut on Friday and retired all 4 Tigers that he faced. Been very good down the stretch. Did not allow a run over his last 8 outings dating back to the middle of September. And here he gets the meat of the Tigers order: Cabrera, Fielder, and Martinez. Cabrera grounds to the left side. Lowry backhands and gets him one away.
Boy, that's, as a pitcher, you'd like to have Cabrera leading off, and they did. Well, Fielder's coming up right now. He started that, or part of that big rally, and this is how Parker went at him. They never came inside. Watch every pitch. Change up, down the way, down the way. Fielder fouls it off, gets a piece of it. Took that one. And then finally another one out there. So consistently down and away. Never came up and in. Made him pay the price.
Otero starts him inside and misses. A ball and no strikes to Fielder, who singled and scored back in the 4th. And is just 2 for 10 in the series so far. One and 1 to Prince Fielder. Dan Otero spent some years with the San Francisco Giants organization. He was a 21st round draft selection back in 2007. Had some opportunities with the big league Giants, but for the most part, time in their minor league system. He was Yankee property for all of 3 days this spring after being claimed on waivers by New York. Yankees put him on waivers after a few days, and then the A's picked him up, and he's been a steady contributor to Bob Melvin's bullpen this year.
Got to give Oakland's scouting department and reporting into Billy Beane a lot of credit for that. We got scouts and cross-checkers, and they look at a guy, file a report, and if you don't have the resources that some of the bigger market teams does, you pick up a guy like that, you see some value in him, and Bob Melvin does, as you mentioned earlier, Matt, such a great job of making these guys feel comfortable and that they're a part of the team. Encourages them.
One ball and 2 strikes to Prince Fielder. 2-2 now. Victor Martinez waiting on deck. Martinez has an RBI double today. 3 runs on 5 hits for the Tigers. They came back from their initial 3-0 deficit to tie it in the 4th. A double play ball abbreviated what looked like a possible rally in the 5th. And Fielders aboard with one away here in the 6th.
Well, well-placed ground ball right up the middle. Otero, as is the, you see him make a motion with his glove, as is the case. Pitchers don't really get themselves back in position to field the comebackers. Lowry, with a nice effort, had no chance to get leather on that one.
So here's Victor Martinez now with 1 out and 1 on, batting once again from the left side of the plate. Johnny Peralta waits on deck. To first for Moss. And Oakland turns a double play in back-to-back innings. That one rather unconventional. Good enough to end the inning anyway.
And a nice pick by Lowry. There's the leaping grab, the tag, and then watch Lowry on the receiving end pick a short hop. Tag Fielder.
Rookie Jose Alvarez continues top half of the 7th. He'll get Brandon Moss, part of a terrific double play that helped end the bottom half of the 6th. That'll be Moss, Cespedes, and Smith.
This will be just a one-hitter appearance for Alvarez, because we've been watching the veteran Porcello warm up in the bullpen, and he's getting game ready now. He's getting serious, so he'll be in there to face Cespedes.
Strike to Moss to make it 1-1. Brandon Moss, until the 5th inning, was searching to snap out of what had been a tough offensive start to the series. Had been 1 for 8 with 7 strikeouts until the solo home run in the 5th. Behind here, 1-2. These are tough looks for Brandon, as those numbers indicate. Just a 200 hitter against southpaws.
That's, I would say, rather typical today. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a time in baseball when as many teams have as many pitchers that can throw hard, that have secondary pitches coming out of the bullpen. As a hitter, you get one look at them, and that's it.
A full count, 3 balls and 2 strikes. Brandon Moss, time with a couple of organizations prior to coming to Oakland. Pirate property, Red Sox property. Here's the payoff pitch home to him. Swing and a miss. The strikeout for Alvarez starts the top half of the 7th. Here's Cespedes now. He has been announced. And still no sign of Jim Leland or Jeff Jones.
Well, I guess the deal was maybe if Moss got on, because Porcello was definitely getting ready.
Yeah. So it will be Cespedes to face the left-hander here with 1 out and the base is empty.
I think you can kind of read Jim Leland's mind here. Porcello is the kind of guy, he's done a lot of throwing out there, but now he's going back to just tossing it easy. He's a sinker baller, and I think what Leland is saying, every out I can get, there's Rick continuing to throw, every out I can get out of Alvarez. Porcello, though he'll not start in this series, could be a big factor coming out of the pen.
2 balls and a strike to count to Yoenis Cespedes. Well, it's a bunch of left-handed batters coming up after Cespedes. We made the note when we signed on that it's a left-handed heavy lineup that Bob Melvin offered today.
Yeah, that's the advantage of it. You managers, if they have the opportunity to do it, they'll stack their lineup left, right. So they're going to force the opposing manager to make a lot of switches if they want that matchup all the time.
The 2-2 to Cespedes. A call, strike 3. Boy, and Cespedes shot a glare back to Gary Garland.
Well, let's see why. Looked like a good pitch. I don't know if he thought it was high or if he thought it was inside.
It's a hot sun beating on that blacktop. Keep talking. You'll be walking that last block. Hey, 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 Gary Darling. I don't think that was what was on Cespedes' mind, but it's a pretty good pitch. 2 gone now. And here's Seth Smith. His 2-run home run in the 5th signaled the end for Sanchez today and gave the A's the lead they currently enjoy. 6-3 Oakland. Chopper in the infield. Infante backhands, and the A's go away in order for the 2nd straight inning. Jose Alvarez able to hold the deficit at 3. to this Division Series telecast on MLB Network, presented by Geico. With Jim Cobb and Sam Ryan, Matt Vasgersian here in Detroit. The A's continue to lead the Tigers 6-3. Dan Otero looking for a second scoreless inning in relief. Johnny Peralta with other ideas. A reminder, watch live alternate angle companion coverage, live batting practice streams, and full audio broadcast to the 2013 Division Series and National League Championship Series with postseason.tv. Peralta starts the inning with a ground ball to the right side, and man, has that Oakland infield been tight today.
I mean, these are not your normal routine infield hops, and Moss not known for his defense. One got by him today, but he's made a couple of sparkling plays. Donaldson, of course, the one that's really had an effect on the game, and Lowry to end the last inning. That's a nice play right there for a guy who's known for his bat and not his glove.
So here's Alex Avila now with one away. Avila 0 for 2 so far this afternoon. Dan Otero came in for Parker after 5. You know, we told the story last half inning about how Dan Otero arrived in an A's uniform, having been claimed off waivers by the Yankees. We said at the time that he was Yankee property for 3 days, and while that's technically true, Ray Fosse, the longtime Oakland A's broadcaster and one of the best catchers in franchise history, might I add, came in to share a little anecdote with us between innings. Apparently, Otero was claimed on waivers mid-flight. The Yankees claimed him off waivers from the Giants. He was flying to join the Yankees when the A's claimed him on waivers.
That's caught a real rundown there. Coast to coast. There's Ray Fosse.
There's Ray.
I knew him more when he was with the Indians coming up.
Ray's working on the radio side this afternoon. Imagine that was rather disorienting for Dan.
Yeah.
You land and somebody tells you, hey, no, you're not here. You're going somewhere else. This is to Avila. 1-2 now.
Good sinking action on that fastball.
Omar Infante waits next. We talked about the shift earlier today and the fact that the A's have used it successfully so far this afternoon. Here it is again.
That's how 76-foot difference from where Donaldson normally play at third base. And all of those numbers you see are the amount that they shift compared to normal. Now, if you see the Tigers when they're out there, they're kind of old-fashioned in that they kind of feel for every ball that's hit into that shift, you might give up one. Like right now, if Avila would have to trickle one down the third baseline, it's going to be an easy base hit. And most of his at-bats, his hits, as you see, almost half of them are pulled down the right field line, thus the exaggerated shift.
No shift necessary this time. A swing and a miss. And there are 2 away here in the 7th. For an update on the Division Series action elsewhere, Matt Yeloff at the MLB Network studios. All right, Matt, thanks. And Matt's keeping his eye on that one. Talking a little bit about the Division Series action to come later this afternoon as Omar Infante stands in. And news out of the Dodgers-Braves series, Jim. This is something of a surprise that Don Mattingly has called an audible today for Game 4 with the Braves. Ricky Nolasco, the scheduled starter. It's going to be Clayton Kershaw pitching on 3 days rest for just the second time in his career later tonight in L.A.
I don't blame him. If I've got Kershaw and Greinke and got a chance to put it away, I do it. You know, the 4-day rest, I mean, that thing is, there's much too much made out of that. First of all, pitchers, they don't pitch 9 innings that much anymore. So you start them on the 4th day. If you got a lead after 7, you're going to your bullpen anyway. So I like the move. I wish more managers would do it, particularly in the postseason.
Well, that's pretty easy for you to say. You were one of the most resilient guys in the history of the game.
Yeah, but I was not different than any of the other pitchers there. And these guys are bigger, stronger.
So shattered bat in front of the plate, and another fine play by Josh Donaldson. Hold that thought.
Okay.
We'll get back to it after another scoreless inning from Dan Otero. Through 7, still 6-3 Oakland.
In the game of baseball, there is a special place. They have built it. And now we have come. It's the Oakland A's against the Detroit Tigers. It isn't heaven, but it's pretty darn close.
Back in Detroit for the top of the 8th inning. Oakland on top by 3. It'll be Josh Reddick to lead things off. A pinch hitter waits next as Derek Norris has grabbed a bat. And then Eric Sogard. The rookie left-hander Jose Alvarez, who came on in replace of Sanchez in the 5th, continuing here in the 8th.
Boy, he's getting some nice postseason experience and pitching very well.
But the hard-throwing left-hander Sean Doolittle getting hot for the A's. Reddick sends that one out to right center. Enough hang time for Austin Jackson, and there's one away. So now the pinch hitter, and one that has been a pinch hitting superstar for the A's this year. His last 3 home runs have all been as a pinch hitter. July 27th against the Angels in the turnback clock unis. August 6th against the Reds. September 27th against the Mariners. Derek Norris, 3 pinch hit home runs, tied for the 3rd most in Major League Baseball this year. And there's no chance Jim Leyland is going to let the lefty face him here. A pitching change for Detroit. They go back to the bullpen for the second time. Into a crucial 11th hour in this game 3, and we'll be from the award-winning analysts of MLB Network. All the postseason drama all in one place right after the game. Presented by Bacardi Oakart. Adam Jones joining Greg Amsinger, Harold Reynolds, and Kevin Millar right after the A's and Tigers. Jose Veras enters on a T-Mobile pitching change, trying to keep this at a 3-run deficit for Detroit. They'll face the pinch hitter Derek Norris with 1 out and the bases empty.
Veteran right-hander, been with Houston, the Tigers, the Yankees, now with the Tigers.
Veras making his 3rd career postseason appearance today. Had a couple of postseason opportunities as a Yankee back in 2007.
Nice to see Jose Alvarez got a really warm ovation from the Tiger fans, paying attention to the fact that here's a rookie and pitching in postseason ball, and all of his teammates right there at the top step. That's a nice confidence booster for him.
3 scoreless innings by Alvarez as he turns it over to Veras here in the 8th. 2 balls and a strike to Derek Norris.
Looked like Jim Leyland was going to bring him in back in the 5th inning to face Seth Smith, but he opted to stay one more hitter with Sanchez. Big 2-run blow, a big difference in the ball game.
2-1 to Norris is in for a strike.
Number 2 catcher, and Bob Melvin has opted to carry 3 catchers, so he can afford to pinch hit Norris. Managers always like to have that extra catcher in reserve because they're prone to get foul tips on their fingers, etc. Break a ball there.
It's a foul tip that's hung on to for the 2nd out of the inning.
Good curveball from Veras.
You know, you start eyeballing what the Tigers have offensively coming up in the 8th and 9th. And they are guaranteed at least one more pass for the big fellas, Cabrera and Fielder. In the 8th inning, they'll have number 9 Jose Iglesias, then Jackson and Hunter. Cabrera, Fielder, and V-Mart to follow. 2 gone, bases empty now for Eric Sogard. Jose Veras trying to keep the deficit at 3, something Alvarez did successfully over 3 scoreless innings. A well-traveled right-hander trying to follow suit. And I do mean well-traveled. 8 years in the big leagues, and Jose Veras has spent time with 7 different major league teams.
I think Mike Morgan still has the record that actually phenom that came up with the A's, right-handed. He's been with 13, or had been with 13.
Mike Morgan Highway,
yep,
as they've called it, which since I believe has been surpassed.
Oh, by Octavio Dotel. Oh, yes, gone for 14, huh?
But it took Jose Veras a while to get there. 32 years old. Acquired by the Astros around the midway point this year to shore up the Tigers bullpen. Sogard on a couple of hops out to fielder. The A's go away in order for the 3rd straight inning. It's time for the Tigers offense to make some noise. To the bottom of the 8th. Detroit will have the top of the order now. Guest on MLB Network is presented by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. And sponsored in part by the new 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee. And by the Venture Card from Capital One. Earn double miles you can actually use. Some of the statues outside Comerica Park lionizing some of the franchise greats. The more immediate concern for this franchise is a 3-run deficit and a hard-throwing left-hander by the name of Sean Doolittle. He'll face the top of the Tigers order in the last of the inning. Doolittle starts Austin Jackson with strike 1.
Derek Norris, who pinch hit, takes over the catching chores.
Jackson, Hunter, Cabrera in the 8th. It's a big fastball swung on and missed.
Yeah, you don't have to wait too long for it to get up there if you're a hitter against Sean Doolittle. His job is to, whether they're left-hand hitters or right, get through the 8th, and Grant Belfour is the guy to use in the 9th. Sean Doolittle looks like he'd fit in pretty well in the Red Sox bullpen. Fear the beard.
Doolittle, one of a number of A's relievers to finish the regular season in rather tough standing. Just a .63 ERA down the stretch.
Wow.
And he blows it right past Austin Jackson, one away.
Well, there's a lot of stats in baseball. My favorite for the pitchers, and this goes back to my friend Mariana McCauley, been doing pitching stats for me for 20 years, retired now, but it's power and control. You get a guy who strikes out more hitters than he allows base runners. That's the optimum. I mean, Kimbrel of the Braves right now is at the top of the list, but it seems like every team has guys that can come out and strike out more hitters than they allow base runners.
A ball and no strikes, the count to Torrey Hunter. The four-time All-Star, 1 for 3 this afternoon. He singled and scored one of the 3 runs in the 4th. That was really the last big moment for this sold-out crowd when the Tigers got 3 in the 4th inning to pull even at 3. Oakland then struck for 3 in response in the 5th, and we have stayed there ever since. And Hunter's behind 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's so hard for a hitter to have a real aggressive swing against a pitcher like Doolittle. I mean, you just kind of feeling for the ball and hope you can make contact. You have to try to shorten up your swing.
Sean Doolittle was on major league radars long before the Oakland A's got their meat hooks into him. He was originally drafted as a 39th rounder by the Braves in 2004, but instead went to the University of Virginia because he wanted to pitch. Braves rather wanted to hit. The Braves drafted him as a pitcher. He didn't make the conversion to the mound full time until the 2011 season as Oakland property. Full count to Torrey Hunter. In fact, if you had asked members of the Doolittle family if someone in their family tree were to reach a major league pitching mound in an Oakland uniform, they might have guessed Sean's brother, Ryan, who was drafted by the A's back in 2008. That misses inside.
Well, it's given him a little hope, that base on balls. It was Torrey Hunter's single off Jared Parker earlier in the game that started a rally. And the A's have done a good job so far being able to face Miguel Cabrera with nobody on base, but not this time.
Cabrera has singled, flied to center, and grounded to shortstop today. On the first pitch, popped him up. 2 away.
Now that's the pitch he's, as most hitters, most vulnerable to. Good high fastball. It's the toughest pitch to catch up with. See right there, tries to bring the hands in. Now you throw him that same pitch thigh high on the outside corner, he'll drive it over the right field wall, but that's just a very tough pitch for any hitter to catch up with.
But that took a lot of the enthusiasm out of what had become a charged up, sold out crowd. Now it's Fielder with 2 out. Prince has a couple of singles this afternoon.
That's a waste. I mean, again, I wouldn't think that's called from the bench, but you got 2 out in a 3-run lead. Let Torrey Hunter steal all the bases he wants.
Well, as we discussed, Tigers dead last in Major League Baseball in stolen bases as a team. Torrey Hunter took only 3 bags this year. That's his lowest total of his terrific career. 0-1 the count to Prince Fielder. Shortstop right to Jed Lowry. Nothing in the Detroit half of the 8th. We're headed to the 9th inning in Detroit this afternoon with Oakland on top by 3.
It's what you eat, sleep, breathe. Your whole existence just consists of this. Refuse to quit.
Oakland A's have used a combination of the long ball and some terrific defense this afternoon to take a 3-run advantage to the top half of the 9th. Coco Crisp will begin the process of trying to pad that lead. Top of the order, Crisp, Donaldson, and Lowry. As Jose Veras continues out of the Tiger bullpen. Grant Balfour, the rage up in the Oakland pen, preparing for the bottom half of the 9th.
His country will get an opening day next year. Grant from Australia. Dodgers and Diamondbacks going out there, I believe. Open the season. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. Strong talk about that. I think there's about a handful of Aussies in the big leagues.
One suspects that David Nilsson and Graham Lloyd may make an appearance in some capacity.
Yeah, I saw Graham. I was there this winter. Actually did the Australian League All-Star game on the radio. Graham was there. He's pitching coach for Perth.
3 balls and no strikes. The count to Coco Crisp. Fans of the Oakland A's hope that there's an opening day in Oakland for a lot of years moving forward. A ballpark situation that remains in flux. Constant threats to relocate the team either to San Jose or elsewhere. Meanwhile, a extremely loyal Oakland/East Bay fan base would love them to stay right where they are. Coco Crisp with another base hit this afternoon. This one rattles around in the right field corner. And Crisp wheels into second with his second leadoff double of the day. A reminder, the MLB Fan Cave is coming back in 2014. You can be a part of next season's team by going to MLB.fancave or MLBfancave.com and apply now.
Yeah, I think the Oakland team, and getting back to Crisp right now with that double, it's Bob Melvin telling us before the game, you know, most teams look for the middle of their lineup to drive the bus. And Bob Melvin said, we need Coco Crisp. He's our engine. And boy, he's done his part today. But Oakland is probably, in the last few years, the most underappreciated and unnoticed successful baseball team with not a lot of marquee names. When Jason Giambi was there, they kind of came out of nowhere and went to postseason.
There's strike one to Josh Donaldson.
Of course, I think still there's so much talk in past years of the great team being the big red machine, but you'd be hard pressed to find a more dominant team than the Oakland A's, 72-3-4. Sal Bando, Joe Rudy, Vita Blue, Campaneris.
That 72 team, of course, had to go through the Tigers to get to the World Series that year. Into the shortstop hole. Iglesias got caught on a weird hop and then got tied up with his footwork. And Donaldson reaches base safely.
Yeah, you're right about the footwork, and that's one of the most important things for a middle infielder. Looked like he wanted to stop and plant his foot. His spike got caught right there, lost his balance, and obviously no chance to get Donaldson after that. Yeah, and then you have the Tony La Russa years. You have Dave Stewart, Bob Welch, Canseco, McGuire, Walt Weiss now managing the Rockies. They had another run of success. Those teams got a lot of national publicity, but this Oakland team, they just kind of go along rather unnoticed.
There's Jed Lowry now 0 for 4 today and hitless 0 for 11 in the series. A double by Crisp, an infield single for Donaldson. You know, talking about the postseason history between these two teams, it started in '72. It continued in 2006 in a series that was all Tigers. The Tigers swept Oakland in the ALCS on their way to the World Series that year. The dramatic finishing blow, the Magli Ordonez home run. Coco Crisp enjoying a 3-hit game is the first in Oakland postseason franchise history since that 2006 series against the Tigers. Milton Bradley cashed through with a 3-hit game in an A's uniform.
Monopolized it.
Nicely done. A lot of game playing going on. Luke Pitkonen is up in the bullpen for Detroit. Boy, a 3-run deficit is one thing. As quiet as the Tigers' offense has been in this series, they can ill afford to fall behind any further. There is, however, this encouraging bit of information for Tiger fans. Recalling the last time these two teams met in this ballpark at the end of August, Detroit at one point trailed 6-1. They trailed 6-3 in the ninth. Grant Balfour came in for what looked like a routine save opportunity, gave up 4 in the ninth, including a walk-off home run by Torrey Hunter, and that's what prevented the A's from sweeping 4 against the Tigers. So it has been done. The Tigers have come back from a deficit like this against this very opponent and against the man who they'll likely face in the bottom of the inning. Still a ball and 2 strikes on Jed Lowry. Barris delivers the next 1-2, is swung on and missed. Jed Lowry's gone down swinging again. 3 strikeouts for the Oakland shortstop today.
Good sinking fastball moving away.
The Tigers have really done a nice job handling Lowry, a .290 hitter during the regular season. He's been quiet in 3 games in this division series, and now it's Brandon Moss. It's a note worth repeating that in recent division series history, when 2 teams enter Game 3 tied 1 win apiece, the team that wins Game 3 has taken 9 of the last 10 division series. We've reached a pivotal time in a pivotal Game 3 this afternoon. Ryan Cook up in the Oakland bullpen along with Grant Balfour.
Say, why would they have 2 guys up? I think if Oakland scores a few runs, comfortable margin, they'll save Balfour, bring in Cook.
Boy, Ryan Cook would love the opportunity to exercise some demons. Had a rocky outing here in Game 2 of last year's division series. One that led to the Tigers coming back for a Game 2 win. Ball and a strike to count to Brandon Moss, batting with 1 away and runners at first and second. Oakland up 3 here late, top half of the ninth.
Good pitch. Knee high, outside corner. Same old thing, low and away, high and tight. 2 best areas to pitch hitters.
And a swing and a miss. Another big strikeout for Jose Veras. Well, he's 1 out away from getting out of a tight jam.
Same spot, same movement. 2 strikes, expand the strike zone, and chalk up another strikeout.
Here's Cespedes now. He has singled and reached on an error today. 2 out, runners at first and second. The Game 4 starters in this series, and that's tomorrow. 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific on TBS. Dan Straley for Oakland. Doug Fister for the Tigers. That's what's been announced. I'm quite sure that if Oakland holds on to win this game today, there will be more than one person suggesting Max Scherzer on short rest. That is extremely unlikely to happen.
I don't think Detroit. I don't think the Tigers would make that bold move like the Dodgers are going to make tonight.
And for those that may have missed that discussion a little while ago, Don Mattingly has changed things up for Los Angeles in their game 4 tonight. They want to finish the Braves at home this evening. Clayton Kershaw will start instead of Ricky Nolasco. And we mentioned something that needs adjusting. Mentioned that it would be just the second time in Kershaw's career he started on 3 days rest. It's really the first time, because that 3 days rest appearance previously came in relief. Cespedes falls behind 1-2 now.
Kind of like having Koufax and Drysdale available to win one game for you. Kershaw and Greinke.
But we remember how easy that sounded with Pryor and Wood and the 2003 Chicago Cubs.
Yeah.
Still got to go out there and play.
That's right. Well, Ferris, one pitch from getting out of a sticky situation. That would at least give the Tigers some hope at the bottom of the ninth.
Ball and 2 strikes. The count to Yoenis Cespedes. When the Tigers bat in the last of the ninth, they'll have Victor Martinez, Johnny Peralta, and Alex Avila.
I guess we forgot Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling in that mix.
Yeah, they got it done. The career lines against Graham Belfort for V-Mark, Peralta, and Avila. Next 1-2 to Cespedes. A chopper to the left side of the infield. Cabrera thought about the short run.
Cespedes quit running.
It's time for the bottom of the ninth. Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. Grant Balfour will try to close down game 3. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority, the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball, and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. The accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. To the last of the ninth, and a series of changes.
Now, how about this? I mean, this is inexcusable. He stopped running. The bases would have been loaded with Seth Smith coming up. So should the Tigers do something miraculous here, you look at Derek Barton going in at first base, a little better glove there, and Grant Belfour on the mound. That's, boy, you hate to see that for any player. A player of Cespedes' caliber could have put a lot more pressure on the Tigers. Bases loaded and 2 out, and a hitter like Seth Smith coming up.
So it's Grant Balfour that comes on in what Oakland hopes is the final T-Mobile pitching change of the afternoon. Martinez, Peralta, and Avila. And a sold-out crowd reinvigorated here in the last of the ninth. Fastball stays high. Grant Balfour picked up his first career postseason win after pitching a scoreless top of the ninth inning Saturday in Oakland. The Oakland A's franchise record holder for consecutive saves. A distinction here in this July when he saved his 41st straight, breaking Hall of Famer Dennis Eckersley's record. Eck, by the way, will be back in the booth tomorrow for Game 4 of this series with Buck Martinez and Don Orsillo. Game 4 tomorrow on TBS, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific.
Grant Belfour is the antithesis of Mariano Rivera, the greatest closer of all time, who stands out there very cool, calm. Never know if he had a 10-run lead, he was done. Belfour will bring a lot of emotion. Yeah, he's amped. He's got that Australian rugby mentality.
Martinez delivered 2 of the 3 Tigers runs with the double in the 4th. Fights off a 1-2 pitch to stay alive.
Whoa!
Get back up on him!
Tigers flared in an awful hurry. Victor Martinez and Grant Balfour join, and benches have cleared. My goodness!
I don't know who said something first. And then you could hear, unfortunately, the sound that came out.
Here come the bullpens now.
Boy, that's the last thing Oakland wants. I mean,
no question.
First of all, you see Cespedes loaf on a ground ball, and you got a 3-run lead, and you start doing something to ignite the opposition. You know, it's the old, when you lose, say little. When you win, say less. Just get out there and hope you get 3 outs and go home.
You know, this is Grant Balfour being Grant Balfour. Yeah. He is, as you mentioned, Jim, he's amped up. He talks a lot. It's not personalized, but he talks a lot. In fact, he has the demeanor of a guy that wants to fight you. That's not his intention. That's how he gets himself out there ready to throw in the ninth. Martinez took exception to that talk, offered a few words back, and then it escalated really quickly. We apologize for some of the live audio that we may have caught during that really quick emotional outburst. Foul ball.
Yeah, you can talk to yourself. Mark the Bird Fidrich did it right in here, but, you know, not toward the hitter.
You know,
there's nothing productive about that for Grant Balfour. That's only going to work against you.
I mean, that's nothing different than what Balfour's done all year. And in this case, Martinez took exception. Yeah, now they're going to try to sort this out and get the emotions back. But, Jim, I couldn't agree with you more. That's the last thing Oakland wants to have happen, is to wake up the Tigers here in the ninth. Warnings have been issued to both sides. And Jim Leyland just wants to clarify that with the home plate umpire and crew chief Gary Darling. Gary Darling, by the way, did a very good job of making sure that didn't escalate any further.
Now, there's nothing wrong with being emotional out there talking to yourself, but there's absolutely no sense in directing those kind of comments toward the opposing hitter. Now he's really got this, what's left of the crowd, into it.
Wow.
A lot of them left after Fielder made the last out of the 8th inning.
Martinez lines to right, and there's one away. Boy, they're still talking to each other.
Well, you notice that Derek Barton very, very wisely got over there between his pitcher and
well, that's a huge out. Martinez gets on base there.
Yeah.
And there's a greater likelihood that Balfour is unnerved in the ninth.
Well, I wasn't trying to be Kreskin or predict, but he certainly is different than Mariano Rivera, isn't he?
That's safe to say, for sure. Here's Johnny Peralta now with one gone, and Balfour delivers a strike.
Is that why they nicknamed him the Rage?
I think we saw it right there, didn't we? You know, it's something that we talk about on MLB Tonight nightly when the late night show is up following the West Coast action, that Grant Balfour has the demeanor of a guy who wants to brawl after every pitch. That's not his intention. That's how he is. And in this case, it came close to really coming back and biting him. A ball and 2 strikes, the count to Johnny Peralta. What an unexpected turn this game has taken. And I have to believe, Jim, that blown save at the end of August is on Grant Balfour's mind in some capacity here. A guy who pitches with a chip on his shoulder, and it's a little extra bit of a chip against this team in this ballpark.
Nothing wrong with that, but you don't put it on display like you did toward Victor Martinez.
And a full count to Peralta now, 3-2.
That's all these fans want right now is one base runner. You're going to hear the noise level.
Sevilla waiting on deck. Here's the payoff pitch. Tigers are down to their final out of the afternoon.
Chase ball 4.
Alex Avila's hitless this afternoon. Strike one to Avila. Detroit down to their final strike. It was almost a calendar year ago, October 7th of 2012. Grant Balfour was the losing pitcher in Game 2 of the 2012 ALDS. That experience perhaps still on his mind. The blown save in August, somewhere in that coconut. And he has come out here this afternoon with an extra chip. A ball and 2 strikes. They count to Alex Avila. Omar Infante hoping for a chance next. Outside the 3 in the Detroit half of the 4th. The Tigers lineup has been quiet today. Only 2 hits other than those in the 4th. And it's 2-2 now to Avila. Full count, 3 balls and 2 strikes. Avila fell behind quickly. He's done a nice job to get it back to full. 3-2. The bottom of the Tigers order has been held hitless today. Avila, Infante, and Iglesias combined 0 for 9. There's ball 4. 2-out walk keeps hope alive.
You got to do quite the babysitting job if you're a catcher in the 9th inning for the A's. See Derek Norris out there to, there's a difference between using that emotion for you and then in that case probably overthrowing down to that last strike.
So that brings the tying run into the on-deck circle. And if it gets that far, Don Kelly would pinch hit. First things first, it's Omar Infante with 2 out and a runner aboard. Yeah, now Balfour just having trouble locating. Omar Infante in a admittedly small sample size, 2 for 4. He's had some success against Balfour. And it's 1-1. Boy, this is a real high wire act for Oakland. Bob Melvin and Kurt Young just trying to coax one final out of their closer this afternoon. In the air to right. Reddick back. And Oakland hangs on to win Game 3. The emotions in the last of the 9th made it interesting, but the A's take a 2-1 advantage with a chance to close out the Tigers in Detroit tomorrow night.
Well, the A's jumped out to that 3-run lead. Jared Parker couldn't shut things down, and then Anibal Sanchez, who's been so great here at Comerica Park, could not shut down the A's in the 4th inning, and that was the difference in the ball game.
Boy, the big story for Oakland outside the shenanigans in the last of the 9th, the home run. Oakland hit 186 during the regular season, the most of any playoff team. They had been kept completely quiet in that regard in games 1 and 2. But the home run is the difference in game 3. 3 Oakland long balls. And Bob Melvin can smile and exhale. The A's win game 3 on the road, and again are 1 win away from advancing to the ALCS. Let's check in with Sam Ryan.
Brandon Moss, Seth Smith, up 2-1 now, but not without some tension there in the 9th. I know you guys were out of the game at that point, but what did you notice between the two of them?
Just middle of the competition, everybody's blood gets going a little bit. Obviously, Balf is a character on the mound, so there's going to be some fireworks sometimes. It is what it is.
Each of you guys with a home run in the 5th. I got to ask you about the 5th and really the mindset going in after they tied it up in the bottom of the 4th.
Answer that. Hey, you want to respond, and we had a possibility of a shutdown inning earlier. They came back, and it was nice for Brandon to get us on the board there early in the 4th inning, maybe. I don't know, what inning was it? 5th inning. But for us to score some runs and get back on top there was big.
And 2 batters later, you had the 2-run home run. Sanchez, someone who you have really good career numbers against. What do you attribute that success to?
I don't know. Maybe I'm in a good place every time I face him. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it sets me at first, and I seemed to be worried about him a little bit, and I got a good pitch over the plate, 3-1, and was able to get the barrel to it. Brandon,
about Victor, I got to ask you about your defense. Had the double in the 4th to really part of that inning, but then his next time up, you turned the inning-ending double play. What did you do differently defensively there?
The first time I was just off the bag a little bit more, trying to protect the hole a little bit. That time, obviously, I just stayed a little bit closer to the bag so that if anything did go down the line, I'd be able to get to it.
Well, congratulations, guys, up 2-1 now.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
All right, Sam, thanks. And Jim, a couple of Oakland A's who are playing down the emotions of the 9th, no big deal, and playing down their success today with the home run and the victory, a 6-3 A's win.
Yeah, they are. And I look at the line score, 9 runs, 18 hits, 1 error total between the two teams. For me, the game, Josh Donaldson's play on the inning-ending double play where Miguel Cabrera would have come up with 2 men on. To me, that was the game winner. He deserves a save for that play.
Well, and almost on cue, a light rain starting to fall now that the game is complete, as the Tiger faithful hoping that their team isn't rained out and finished off 24 hours from now. Oakland takes a 2-1 lead in the series. Coming up next on MLB Network. Full highlights and analysis on MLB Tonight, presented by Bacardi Oakart. Greg Amsinger, Harold Reynolds, Kevin Millar, and Adam Jones are standing by in the studio. For Jim Cotton, Sam Ryan, Matt Vasgersian saying good night. Thanks for watching this Division Series telecast on MLB Network, presented by Geico.